Okay, so 1 year ago today, I created this YouTube channel with one goal in mind: to share my passion for fighting games with the world. More specifically though, a particular fighting game I was very passionate about was announced to return soon after roughly a year-long hiatus. Of course, you've already seen the title and thumbnail, so there's no use dancing around the fact that the game I'm talking about here is Multiversus. The big push that finally convinced me to get into making content was the motivation to get as many eyes on the game as possible and build hype for the game's full release. I've genuinely loved being able to play the game and make content for it for the time that I've been able to. And I'm incredibly grateful that I've had so many people interested in what I've had to say. You've all heard this story by now though. Every content creator who's even heard of the game has probably made a content piece in some way, shape, or form that has covered the gradual downfall of the game. Or they'll at least point out many of the game's critical failures. And as the game carried on throughout its lifespan, while it did improve, it seemed to be too little too late and is now scheduled to go offline on May 30th. I'd like to clarify that I don't have the wild stance that these videos and criticisms are what killed the game. Of course not. I myself have voiced my frustrations with the game on stream from time to time. And there's nothing wrong with elaborating on what you think is bad game design or even criminal levels of monetization. But as far as the content that I put out and plan to continue putting out, I want to be the guy who focuses on just how cool and interesting fighting game design can be. There's just so much frustration being voiced online all the time. Not just about Multiversus, but in the fighting game sphere as a whole. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Multiversus didn't deserve criticism, it definitely did. But it's already so rampant that I don't think there's any value in jumping on the bandwagon. So join me in this trip down memory lane as we give one final send-off to Multiversus. And who knows, if you stick around to the end, there may even be a light at the end of the tunnel. 2v2 focused gameplay. 2v2s and platform fighters have always been a bit of an afterthought, with 1v1s or free-for-alls taking center stage. Multiversus was the first platform fighter to break that mold and put a design emphasis on team-based 2v2 gameplay. Yes, I know Brawlhalla 2v2s are very popular, but Multiversus was truly the first platform fighter to have 2v2 specific mechanics. Speaking from personal experience, I've always had a difficult time convincing myself to boot up ranked in a 1v1 game. While this anxiety can drive a player to lock in and try their hardest, it can be pretty mentally taxing, especially for people who are new to the competitive scene. Even when you're just grinding casual matches, it too can come with its own share of frustrations. Sure, normally in friendlies, you're probably not going to be beating yourself up over losses. But for something that you do with friends, it can create a little tension in the air. If you've played any amount of fighting games, I'm sure people have called you carried, complain about a move you use, or even your playstyle. And while it's all in good fun at the end of the day, obviously no one wants to go on a 50-game lose streak losing to their friend. It just kind of makes things awkward for both parties involved. With 2v2s though, the mental load can be alleviated a bit. If you have a lot of ranked anxiety, it helps a ton to have a friend there to get hyped with you for your wins and help share the frustration with your losses. Depending on who you play with, you might even be able to come out of your losses more productively since you're able to work together to figure out how to deal with something as a team. And when you're grinding friendlies, since you're working with each other instead of against each other, it's a lot easier to play in extended sessions without it getting awkward. Most of the time. Aside from the inherent nature of 2v2s, Multiversus themselves brought a lot of new and interesting ideas to the format. You see, Multiversus had a ton of ways that you could interact with your teammate and how you would control space. There was no team attack, so you could approach the situation and how to control the stage in a large number of ways. There's obviously the benefit of being able to cover for each other by attacking an opponent that's hitting your teammate without the worry of damaging your teammate, but there's also a bunch of characters who specialize in different game plans when it comes to their approaches. You could run down opponents with hyper-aggressive teams that can work together to cover all of your opponent's options and delete their stocks. You could have a dedicated tank lead the charge as their teammate provides them with cover to allow them to get in. You could control the entire screen with a flurry of projectiles and team with a character who can empower those projectiles even further. And there were just so many insane team combos that you could utilize with a surprising amount of synergy that made pretty much every character viable in the format. While 1v1s very quickly exposes a lot of the gameplay's most egregious flaws, 2v2s almost always has a fix for them through the nature of the format. Infinites or overly extensive combos, non-existent if you have a teammate to help get you out of it. The game is slow and campy. The fact that 4 characters have to share the stage and the fact that your teammate can cover you encourages more interaction. Too much hit pause? More hit pause means more time for your teammate to react and follow up for some fun and creative extensions. Is your character bad in 1v1s? Not only only are they likely to be much stronger in 2v2s, but the presence of another teammate can at least allow you to run your game plan more effectively, or at the very least, your teammate can carry you. I'm not saying that 2v2s are perfect by any means. You could do some pretty insane stuff in the format. Jake in particular was infamous for being a bad character that had to have his bite, his only good option, nerfed because it became broken in the 2v2 format. But even with that, there's just so much to love about 2v2s, and I wish it was a lot more popular in other platform fighters. If you're curious to hear me ramble on even more about the core differences between the formats and Multiversus, I have an entire video on the subject, so be sure to go check that out after this one. At the end of the day though, the 2v2 focus was one of, if not my favorite part of Multiversus as a whole. Roster and character design. Okay, I know Multiversus roster and character design gets a lot of shit online, and I can acknowledge that they definitely pick some stinkers. However, I think that a majority of the roster was incredible. Over 60% of the roster was pretty peak, and I'd argue that at least 75% were good choices. And then on top of that, the cooldown system allowed for characters to have some relatively broken tools in their kit. Cooldowns alone let them flesh out the power fantasy of whatever character you were playing. I won't ramble on about why I think cooldowns can be interesting since I already have a full video on that, but to sum it up in the words of IGN, you really feel like Batman. In fact, let's take a look at him for an example of why I think Multiversus character design is just so good. Batman, as you'd expect, has a ton of different tools at his disposal that quite literally lets him be prepared for any situation. Smokescreen makes his team immune to projectiles, but also gives him a speed boost and a small zone of invisibility that makes approaching easier. Bat Bomb can allow him to safely run his opponent down, kill earlier with combo extensions, or kill the Bat Bomb itself. Grapple Hook can be used as a deceptive approach option or as an additional way to recover with minimal commitment. Arguably though, Batman's most iconic gadget in his Batarang is fittingly his most important cooldown. It's a projectile, so it can beat out most buttons, it's a combo extender, it's a great edge guarding tool, it covers his approaches, it cuts off options at disadvantage. It's just overall an insane tool. And all of these tools combine to make Batman's gameplay feel very tactical and prepared while also still feeling extremely threatening. And pretty much every character has this same care put into their design and their gameplay. The game does an amazing job of staying faithful to the character's source material, and it makes the gameplay of each and every character all the more satisfying. Introduction of new modes and ways to play. Okay, obviously every idea they threw at the wall did not stick. But for what it's worth, it was really interesting how frequently the game would update with new ways to play. Not all of them were great, and arguably the development split on the PvE mode as a whole can be cited as a major reason the game failed, but some genuinely fun modes were added that I spent a lot of time on. Silly Mode was a huge collection of different game modes that you could queue into that spiced up gameplay in a more fun, casual way. Once again, not all of them were bangers, but just being able to jump into a game and be tiny, giant, have hot potato bombs, or anything else wacky that you can think of is a fun way to spice up the game a little bit. My personal favorite was the Counter Mode, or as I like to call it,
Guilty Gear Strive.
The game starts with way more stocks, and if you hit someone while they're in their attack animation at any point, a huge
Counter
text appears on screen and provides the attack with way more hit stun, damage, and knockback, like you'd expect in a more traditional fighter. Is it a balanced game mode? Fuck no, you die in literally one hit sometimes. But it's silly, goofy fun that I think a platform fighter can benefit from. But Silly Mode isn't the game mode that I really wanted to talk about. Somewhat recently, Multiversus added this new game mode known as Arena. It was essentially a roguelike multiplayer lobby where you could get different buffs in between rounds that do different things. When you'd lose a little bit of health depending on how hard you lost or how many rounds in you are, and you'd play until you were the last team standing. I played this mode so much when it first came out, and it was a lot of fun. Outside of fighting games, I love playing a good roguelike and having that dopamine rush of a perfect busted run where you get all the right buffs. Now, I don't condone gambling, but man does it feel good to be able to adapt and outplay with random chance. Outside of fighting games, I love me some teamfight tactics, and I'll tear it up at some Mario Party. And the randomness does help every match of Arena in Multiversus feel fresh. My only complaint is that I do wish there was even more variety in the format. But regardless, I do hope that other games consider adding something like this mode to their games in the future. The light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, so that was Multiversus, and what a wild ride it was. It's been a game that's inspired me in countless ways, both as a player and as a content creator. While my time playing the game and making content for Multiversus specifically is likely to come to an end soon, I'll never forget about all the things that made me so passionate about the game in the first place. I hope that I've been able to share a small part of that with you today. For as much shit as this game gets, it was an incredible experience being here for its journey. While it's extremely sad to see the game get shut down and bittersweet to see all the passion come out in its final days from the community, there is a light at the end of this tunnel. With the official shutdown of Multiversus coming soon, there have been very passionate segments of the community looking to push development for the game further. You may have seen the #SaveMultiversus trend on Twitter for a while after the announcement of the game's closing, and while it certainly would be nice to convince Warner Brothers to give the game another chance, two other sections of the fandom are looking to take matters into their own hands. Those being the Multiversus Infinite team and the Multiversus Beta team. It wouldn't be controversial to say that the Multiversus Beta and the full release of Multiversus are two entirely different games. Both the Multiversus Infinite and Multiversus Beta crowds want to see the game continue development through modding. Both would like to see the competitive community thrive, but they also have different visions of what that should look like. The Multiversus Infinite team looks to add what could effectively be an infinite amount of new content to the full release of the game, starting with what's already been data mined, whether that be new characters, stages, mechanics, perks, balance changes, and pretty much anything else you can think of. While the Multiversus Beta team is looking to add on to, you guessed it, the gameplay from the Multiversus Beta. Now, full disclosure, I am a playtester for the Multiversus Beta team. While I can't share the specifics just yet, what I can say is that they've also been putting in work to bring data mine elements to life. They've already shown off developments on Pickle Rick, who was once a skin, but now has been custom made to effectively be a clone character or echo fighter of Rick. They've also announced their intentions towards adding data mined or entirely new perks to the game as well, and that's for both signature and universal perks. The Multiversus Beta team has been hard at work since June of 2024, and it's shown through these developments. Recently though, the Multiversus Beta team did rebrand as Multiversus Beta Plus, and created an official team of artists, coders, designers, and playtesters. From what I can tell, the official creation of the team should massively speed up their development, so I'm very excited to see what comes next. The Multiversus Infinite team, on the other hand, was only created after the announcement of the game's closure, and at the time of writing, they also just recently got an entire development team put together. The Multiversus Infinite team is also looking to take on the ambitious task of adding online functionality and matchmaking for the game with their own servers. Currently, the Multiversus Beta Plus server is using the free-to-download peer-to-peer software that is Parsec to run its games. And while that's worked well enough for the Multiversus Beta team to even host brackets for the beta build, Parsec does come with its own list of connection difficulties that can make it difficult for everyone to get involved. Both the Multiversus Infinite and Multiversus Beta Plus communities are going to have their own sets of strengths and challenges, but I do believe that they'll work together to push forward developments for both of their respective games. If you have ever been passionate about Multiversus, whether it's the beta or the full release, I highly recommend that you check out both of the Discord communities and give them a follow on their social media pages. I have dropped links to those resources in the description below. Although this may be the end of official Multiverses, I hope you'll join myself and the community at large in our pursuit of the light at the end of the tunnel. While Multiversus content for my channel may become a rarity, you'll be sure to find me playing and trying out major developments for Multiversus on stream, and sharing these community contributions when necessary. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and follow me on social media to stay updated. But yeah, that's all I got for now. Thanks for watching, and farewell Multiverses, you will be missed.